Stretch. Waka, 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 waka. How's it going, guys? All right, let's get this out of the way. I can't believe Portal Finder's making me do this. This is probably the best thumbnail that I've ever composed ever. It has quadruple entendres saturated in a crispy nougat coating, and Portal Finder missed it. So I need all you guys to listen up because it's funny. And this is why it's funny. And obviously, I kind of knew this was going to happen. But yeah, Figaro, Figaro. This is an old operatic thing. And you sing the opera and the fat lady's singing. First of all, guys, the title of the episode is Phantom of the Psy Opera, okay? So, like, this is hot enough. Thanks, Stretch. This is hot enough, all right? Secondly, you got a picture of Trump singing the fat lady in front of the White House being collapsed by a bulldozer, and he's singing Migaro. And La Migra is what you say when ICE is coming from you, when they're coming for you. And Portal Finders in the alleyway throwing tomatoes at the screen saying, well, that's not how I spell it. I don't get it at all. This is clearly not funny. And I tell you, Portal Finder, that's not who the quadruple entendre comes for. It tolls for thee, my friend, and I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. I hope some of you will help others understand my humor because I have no idea why I'm here. Do you know why you're here? You pleomorphic little nucleotoid. Do you know why you're here? Do you? I do. And we're going to talk about it. Oligarchy versus democracy. First of all, I don't know why we're not calling it by its real name. Polyarchy. I think it's because people are like, I don't want to go around saying polyarchy. I'm not a polyarchist. We want to be democrats. Democratical. That's it. Let's be democratical about it. Has anyone ever said democratical? There could be a sidebar there where we win like some kind of lottery and we can split it and have a pizza party. We're having a pizza party Friday. Everybody show up. We're having a pizza party Friday. But first, let's get to the news. I've promised you guys some things. On today's episode, we are going to talk about the White House demolition. We're going to discuss the meaning of oligarchy versus democracy and which one's actually better and which one's actually worse. Then we'll be jumping over to Chicago to have a look at what's called soft despotism, a term coined in the French Revolution. And finally, we will bring it home to the White House's use of a two-time convicted felon to push an ICE agenda. All here on James True Live. Let's get started right now. Top stories. Donald Trump's psychopath. You guys already knew that. He's not in the Epstein files, claims everyone. And you guys aren't going to like this. I think he's right. The reason why I think he's right is because Steve Bannon really had a handle over Epstein, the entire psyop, as a constructive medium for a lot of things. And Steve Bannon put Trump in the White House. You could argue that Steve Bannon had or has the goods on Trump, and that therefore, James, Trump would be in the Epstein files, I should say. Sidebar, I'm not saying that Trump's like a clean dude. He clearly got his last wife from an Epstein friend, the friend of Ghislaine, saw to that union. She was an import. And Polish cars, they're known for their frames. So what are you gonna do? And so it's not that a lot of you have a bicameral, dichotomous sort of binary kind of idea. You're looking for something, which is why maybe a lot of you don't stay. But I'm saying that Trump, maybe, he's a piece of shit. Don't worry about it. He's just not a piece of shit in the Epstein files. And that's just what I believe because of the Psy Opera that's been playing for so long, that's been happening for a long time. And I think Bannon kind of gave his cards away. I've actually been pushing for a long time that the Epstein entire thing is purely used as some sort of way of revitalizing government, believe it or not. What I mean by that is that you have a new generation that doesn't buy into the same type of government things. Ronald Reagan doesn't have that same kind of appeal. And you need to up the game a little bit. You need to add more professional wrestling to it, because government's only true medium is attention. Without your attention, it would cease to exist. It really would, especially when you're looking at a gig economy where income taxes are becoming harder and harder to even process or track, where even the notion of that being this is how we keep your attention is failing, because so many young people, thank God, have realized that the 9 to 5 is just a chain gang, that it's a different kind of noose made out of silk, and that the entire idea of let's go to work from 9 to 5 in a building and have human resources tell us which bathroom we should use, and we're going to park and decide how close we park is directly congruent to how many jaguar teeth are in our paycheck. And this is an interesting way of life. It's gotten us where we are today. Thank you, parents. Thank you, boomers. I'd like to do a little shout out to all you boomers out there. Hey guys, you guys are great. I have to do that because you're really deaf as fuck. I'm sorry. I'm being ageist. I'm old as fuck, guys. I can do that. It's like, kind of like the N-word, but for boomers. Well, it's the B word. That's what it is. It's the B word. And you thought B word meant something else, didn't you? So let's think about this. If you're losing interest in government, if it's just too stupid for people to buy into, you're going to need to put a little spice in it. You're going to need an underwater submarine. You're going to need some pedophilia. You're going to need an underground cult of satanic skullfuckers. You're going to need some cannibalism. You're going to need Lawrence Krauss for some reason. Don't ask me why. You're going to need the dude in the wheelchair. You're going to need Bill Gates. You're going to need Bill Clinton. You're going to need Epstein Island. You're going to need all those ingredients. And once you do that, you can bring in a whole new crop of people that didn't give a shit before. And they only give a shit now because they see an opportunity for decrepitness. This is snakes and hair, the true notion of how to build a government. And that snakes and hair is the idea that if you can find the worst of the worst, that you can place them in the center and control them. And guess what? The worst of the worst is placed in the center and controlling you. I don't necessarily mean you, but I mean you as in you're connected to the symbiotic collective. You know that. You know that. Which is why I don't think it's such a great idea to be all like, let's cheer for democracy. I've been arguing for a while, guys, that I think majoritarianism is truly the problem that haunts you today. This idea that we must conform to a central truth, the idea that there's a singular truth that we must cling to and everyone must conform to. And they will attack this notion, meaning people who disagree with it, the majoritarianism kind of ideal, from the idea that this is relativism. And relativism led to the degradation of American values, which then you're trying to figure out. So we had like all these American values, and then Hollywood was born, and then they took them away. That back when we were raping Indians, back when we were lying our asses off to survive whatever it was that we needed to survive, that was when we had American values, but then Hollywood came and took them away. And this is called scapegoatism. It's one of the most popular forms of fascism. It leads to things like, hey, let's deport 1.1 million people this year and also add under God to the Pledge of Allegiance because we're like really religious and stuff. This is that kind of majoritarianism that I warn about. This is that notion that I think is so terrifyingly scary that you end up with a Psy Opera, a psychotic Psy Opera even, led by mega egomaniacal megastars that are there purely to compete for your attention, and that only the ones that are able to find and secure that attention end up succeeding. They end up succeeding because this is truly the purpose of being in politics. The politics would be finding as many people as you can and appealing or jingling keys in front of them. And I think that democracy really gives you the best of both worlds, and I want us to talk about it. Democracy gives you the ability to love and to hate things, to hold no responsibility, but also claim all the victory. It's a very special kind of system. Before we get there, I'm afraid I'm going to forget this slide. Let's talk about this real quick. White House was officially declared a museum in September 1961 under Public Law 87286, which enacted following First Lady Jacqueline Kennedy. She wasn't actually the first Kennedy lady, but for legal reasons, we're going to give it to her. Hats off to you, Jackie. Love what you did with the place. Your East Wing renovation is truly beautiful. Your Rose Garden has been paved. Did you guys notice that? Like 2 weeks ago, they paved the Rose Garden. It is paved like a bitch. So Kennedy, I mean, technically, Trump paved over Jackie. He plowed her, you could say. Trump plowed Jackie. And that's just something that would be in his wheelhouse, like bucket list, kind of 101. So in 1961, Miss Kennedy began a project to restore the public rooms and declared the White House a living museum. A living museum, ladies and gentlemen. What do you think about that? A museum is typically where things that are already done or finished are placed to preserve them because it's of historical significance. Could it be that the country that we think is there is actually not there? I remind you that 1961 was the exact same year that DAPA, the DAP, Defense Authorization Protection Act, that we've discussed many times on here. I've argued that this could have been the closing of a country, and that nowhere in the Constitution does it say, hey, if we got a business, we have to tell you guys. And that just like a church, just like any other institution, if they find a massive failure, let's just say you're like Harvard and your president's accused of cheating and then it turns out she was cheating. You don't close the university the next day. You don't do that. You launch a year-long investigation and you just sit there and hope that people will kind of forget about it and not worry about it. So why is Trump demolishing the White House? Because it's a jingling of keys. This is the new definition of democracy. Also, it's doing something else that I think a lot of us don't really realize how important it is to buffer hate with sidebar hate. And knocking out the East Wing of the White House is about the most brilliant political move you could make when you're Trump, when you're running a nationwide campaign to build your own federal army. You're invading foreign countries. You're literally blowing up boats in the middle of the day that are completely empty, claiming they're full of fentanyl, a drug that's not even manufactured in Venezuela. And you're just going to do what you want to do. You're going to do that precisely because of this government system that we're going to talk about today. More importantly, you would need something like this to distract and bring the attention and steer it away. This is why J.D. Vance says, hey, those Nazis are just kids, okay? And Nazis are kids. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows that when you're a child, you're a Nazi. Everyone knows that. You guys know that, right? You're 6th grade. That's fucking Nazi territory. And everyone's a Nazi until they reach the age of 30. And then once they're 30, 32, 33, they're not Nazis anymore. You guys know that. You don't? Well, J.D. Vance knows that, and that's a move that he's using. He's demolishing another part. He's taking the word and placing it on top of a pole, smearing it with ketchup, and hoping people will be upset by that. And the White House, it's brilliant. Really, really brilliant move. I'd show you video of The View and all these other people that are just like mad and upset. And I saw some of it. I can verify it's there. But why would I do that to you? Why would I make you watch that stuff? I do want to point out, though, that Whoopi Goldberg, who stars on The View, is looking more and more like her character in The Next Generation. That her outfits, her hair, her styling, she's heading into that. I don't know I can't remember her name. Someone will tell me in the comments, but that character's name is starting to grow on her, starting to become more and more real. Why is ruled by a few worse than ruled by many? You and I are supposed to hate oligarchy. Sam Cedar's out there right now going, and this is a fucking oligarchy. And you guys better fucking keep waving oligarchy because we can't practice our democracy. We're in trouble. And I want to know why. Why is that better? Why is an oligarchy worse than a democracy? We claim that, an oligarchy is full of shit. If you don't know what an oligarchy is, some of you are like, wait, what is full of shit? How do you know what's full of shit? No problem. It's ruled by the little, the tiny, the small number. And that, if we're ruled by a small number, we're oppressed. But if we're ruled by a majority, we're not. This puts the re-entard of the American kind of collective. The idea that somehow that's better. The idea that having manyarchy is somehow more free for me than an oligarchy. And we've been fighting this all along, but I would ask, do we even really have this? Is this system really what we have? Technically, by all intents and purposes, we are a polyarchy. We're ruled by several, right? An oligarchy ruled by a small, privileged few, often but not always the wealthy. So oligarchy doesn't even have to be wealthy. This could be your republic of philosopher kings. 12 cranial nerves convening in Mount Olympus in your brain, conducting what it would say is terrorist removal, immigration policies, and the displacement of the thalamus that's collected all of the dopamine from the body and distributes it to what it considers fair and good. A theocratic form of government pretending that it's not a theocracy. That all of the people that are saying all these things about the separation of church and state are just showing you a new kind of religion, and this religion is the belief in the majority. One of the biggest proofs of this is the Bible of science itself. This is not a bash at science. This is not a bash at statistical, empirical evidence collection. But if you look at the rules of science, it tells you that every single thing that happens in the world does not count, does not exist, is not provable, is not factual, and can never be cited in a paper until it's seen by more than one person. And the observer itself creates this majority, it creates this plurality that decides what is real. And as long as we live in a system that demands that we need a collective to decide what's real, as long as we live in a system that demands what the self experiences does not count until he can convince someone else to sign on, is truly a flaw of sovereignty, of personal power, of personal existence, and of your direct experience in this world. And the only reason why you're stuck in this trough with this yoke on your back is because of the collective prana of how good it feels to have a group back you up. It is, you're the lead goose. No, you're not the lead goose. And you're feeling the airstream, and it pulls you along. You are drafting the crowd, and that drafting saves you calories that are vital that you can take home to your wife and kids, your partner, your animal, your community, and treat the world better. So drafting is good. Finding more calories is good. How you do that becomes something that the shallow witness is unable to see, and that the long witness ends up being tortured by, as he's hoping that others will catch along. So a plutocracy is an oligarchy made out of money. So you see that money itself is not even necessarily the root of power. In fact, when you think about what money is, money would just be the manifestation of all of the theocracy of every single person that has resources, that you vote with your witness, you vote with your money. I personally have been helping Jeff Bezos build a giant underground fucking clock. That's what I've been doing. I've been like, Jeff, you're the guy, man. I want you to fucking have all this money. I suck, man. I'm ruining this world. I really am. I can feel better because I didn't buy a Cybertruck. I was just like, well, I'm fucking great. Look how great I am. I didn't buy a Cybertruck. Then you start to understand. So really, we just jump into the arena just to feel better. We don't really jump in the arena to do anything right. Feeling better is right, isn't it? But when it comes to truly picking a system that we live under, choosing a form of governance that we decide we're going to conform to or adapt to or switch up, but none of that's really happening. This is all for one, one for all. And I think ultimately this is a better model. I think that the thing that's stopping us the most is our desire to keep clinging to the majority. This is why I say science is the Bible, because if you have a system that removes the individual, you now have a system that runs on hypothetical. It runs on a hypothetical extraction, which means if two people saw this, it must be true, or it might be true, or I will wait here until someone proves it wrong. But even proving it wrong and proving it true are just two sides of a debate that you may not even be in the right arena when it comes to discussing what should and should happen. Yesterday's show, I discussed the Articles of Confederacy. It gave the state the ability to veto power. The Iroquois Confederacy had the same thing. The bicameral house was ruled by this court of sachem, and the sachem itself was sort of like our Supreme Court now, but the sachem itself would never bring up new legislation, new ideas. It was up to the younglings and the elders of these two groups to decide, the House and the Senate, what would be the next thing. But the Iroquois Confederacy had personal veto. That you, as representative of your village, and you've come to the longhouse to have a sit-in and discuss the idea of war with the Hurons, you know at any point in time you can pull away and exercise your veto. You do have a power veto, but it's so hard to see, it's so covered up, and it's even a law that judges are allowed to lie to you about that veto. And we'll be discussing that coming up. Hit that thumbs up. Hit subscribe. I could use some more subscribers today. Appreciate you guys. Polyarchy is different from democracy, according to Dahl. Professor Dahl on your right here. Because the fundamental democratic principle is the continuing responsiveness of the government to the preferences of its citizens, considered as political equals. And when you see the word preference, I think you would be wise to replace that word with the word prejudice and just understand that they're the same, because government itself is a collection of prejudice. That everyone who wants the government to represent them simply wants them to represent their prejudice. But James, prejudice is bad. Yeah, that's what we tell ourselves. But when you really start to unwrap what self is, you truly are just a collection of prejudices. You like one thing, you don't like another. People will call you this disposition. And then when someone is asked to describe you, they will list your dispositions. They will define yourself as a party, as a race, as a form of thought, as a occupation. And all of these really just come down to learned rational prejudices that you've developed over time. That all judgment is simply prejudice. That the idea that we can whitewash this and separate it is impossible. And when you start to break down the etymology of the word science, you realize that science is the study of what is known. That's all. It's not the study of wisdom. It's not Sophiacans. It's science. So science is the study of what is known. And when you look up knowledge, you see knowledge is lore. Knowledge is knowledge, the ledging of what is known, the sharing, the distribution, the bookends of what is known. It's a collection of what is known. But what is known is lore. It is the lore of what people tell each other. Did you know that an apple a day keeps the doctor away? This is actually a form of knowledge. It's the same root. It's the same word. It's lore. And you and I live in a Bible of lore called science, and science is truly based on the idea of you're going to need one person to back you up. If you can find a witness, if you can find someone to co-sign for you, we will start to consider that there's something valid about what you have to say. And this is the conglomerate, this is the group itself conforming you into this picture to where you are subservient to what the group has, what the group needs. All of these things occurred. You could argue that government majoritarian itself is the living wetiko, the living plasmatic group mind, the Painbody, as Eckhart Tolle would say. The Painbody tore down the East White House today. It is happening. And you are seeing this juice pupate. You're stuck in the honey goo of it all, the community of it all, the people that you love are inside this thing too. And when you start to trace what feeds this, you see that the lack of self is the entire source of its power. And that the more the self gains power, the less this collective juice is able to control you. This is the science of hegemonics. And if you hate power, you're going to want a hegemonic system where you can give power to something else. You can leverage your safety as a follower. You leverage safety as someone who lacks righteousness to make your own decisions. And if you lack righteousness, no one's going to accuse you of trying to be righteous. So you end up with a definition of prejudicial preferences that are based over time, and an XY scale of what true government really is the liberalization of change strapped to the crucifix of inclusiveness, of participation. And that as long as you can get enough people to go along with it, you can pillage anything in the name of God, in the name of government, in the name of freedom, in the name of we must stop fentanyl from coming to our borders by shooting Venezuelan boats. Prior to the Civil War, Alexis de... I should have looked this up. Tocqueville. Tocqueville? I should have looked up that pronunciation. Alexis de Tocqueville, born 29 July 1805, traveled to America and told his country that he was going to study prisons, wanted to study the prison life of people, and then instead went on like a boat tour, took a cruise around America, went up to Quebec, was living the life, and wrote a book called American Democracy. And Democracy in America. And in this book, he coined the term soft despotism. And I really want you to think about this term. First of all, I want you to give hats off to this dude for even coming up with that term at such a young age in our consciousness. Not him personally, his age, he was probably in his 50s, but just the fact that our consciousness was starting to become aware of this idea of soft despotism. What is soft despotism? It gives people the illusion that they are in control, when in fact they have very little influence over their government. Soft despotism breeds fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the general populace. The Democratic primary is coming up, which means that out of all potential voters, one state, one primary, one political party of a collection of roughly maybe 30% of even the voting electorate is going to come and decide every single thing that's going to happen in the next election, who the candidate is, when the vote's going to be, who's going to be voted on, what it's going to take to even win. All that's decided inside a singular place. And you're just having a lottery, a drawing sometimes, and enough war to redistrict certain things, to finagle different ideas to where you're going to trigger where the primaries are held first. Each party, is setting their date earlier and earlier and earlier because they both know this is really the only vote you have. The only vote that you and I really truly have comes from a place where two parties themselves, inside themselves, get to decide which candidate they want. And that you and I are told this whole time that this is somehow logical, that this is somehow democracy, that out of 155 million candidates that have registered to vote, only 2 of those should be considered to shape your entire life. And we're going to call that democracy. This is soft despotism. As Alexis said, thus, after having thus successfully taken each member of the community in its powerful grasp and fashioned him at will, the supreme power that extends its arm over the whole community, it covers the surface of society with a network of small, complicated rules, minute and uniform, through which the most original minds and the most energetic characters cannot penetrate to rise above the crowd. The will of man is not shattered, but softened, bent, guided. Men are seldom forced by it to act, but they are constantly restrained from acting. Such a power does not destroy, but it prevents. It does not tyrannize, it compresses. It enervates, it extinguishes, it stupefies, till each nation is reduced to nothing better than a flock of timid and industrious animals on which the government is the shepherd. Is this an accident that this occurs? Is this a tragedy that we just lost a few steps? Or is there a deep down oligarchy of people who want less power and they give it to this Painbody, and this Painbody just takes it? It just takes it. And we associate with the Painbody when it's on our side, and we despise the Painbody when it's against us. And so as the fluctuation between red and blue, as the fires in the red temple expire and the fires in the blue temple are lit back up, is the spirit one of cooperation, or is it one of revenge? Is it one of we will gain more power this time and take away what was taken from us before? And so you start to see an endless list of statutes placed inside an endless codex of codes that you can't even count how many laws are on the books. There is no count to how many laws are on the books. If you Google that right now, they're going to try and count it, and then you're going to see a little thing that talks about statutes itself, and then you're going to ask, well, wait a minute, how many of those are there? And we don't even know. Every week, as many as 3 to 5 laws could be added when Congress is in session. Every week, 0 laws are taken away, and every single one of these is a regulation and a restriction limiting your selfhood, your individuation. AI does this now. AI is doing its best to understand you, and in order to understand you, it's quantizing you, and in order to quantize you, it's taking your spirit, your prejudice, as we said, this is part of your identity, and it's trying to place your prejudice into a floating point number from negative 1.000000000 up to positive 1.00000. And every decimal in between is the decimation of the analog you. The analog you is a type of encryption that has not been found before, and that's found when the thing itself, the Painbody, digitizes you. Self itself would rise when we start to claim veto again. The Articles of Confederacy gave states the right to veto. The Iroquois Confederacy gave tribes the right to veto. You still have a tiny right to veto. We'll talk about it later. But until you do, you're not actually living in a government that represents you. You're living in a government that suppresses you. No veto means no rights. Truly. That until you have an unratifiable, inalienable right, you do not have rights written in paper. You can carve tattoos into trees all you want, but when you see the word ratified, you know that that means changeable. And when you see the word changeable, you know that means the crowd can do whatever the fuck they want, whenever they want, and all they have to do is say, 'cause it's good, or 'cause that's evil, or 'cause we gotta save the children, or 'cause public safety, or 'cause fentanyl, or drugs, or all whatever else it is that we need to know, Hottentots and ninjas. That this is all it takes to give power that you already gave away. It's just being exercised on your behalf under the idea that you agreed to such things. Conscientious objection is more of a civil right than you know. It's a deeper tenet than you can even, I think, fathom. And we don't actually have that right now. We have a punitive conscious objection pathway through JAF, through medical, through education, through speech, through ritual, that until something has non-punitive alternatives for you to veto, i.e. not participate, you could see those things as the same thing. So you may want to dwell on that point for a while, that is veto the same as non-participation? But if you look at a confederacy itself, yes, that would be the case. That you've gone to the White House, the Long House, to meet the rest of the tribes. They've each given you reasons why we should go to war with Greenland. And you go home saying, I don't think we're going to do this. And that you're not punished for this. You're not considered a problem. You're not an enemy of the state. They're not going to have Trump poop on you in some AI video, because you're practicing what we're all supposed to believe, which is that each of us are autonomous individuals. Each of us are our own kings, our own monarchs inside of a patriarchy of selfhood. And that selfhood is a castle of prejudice, not reason. It's prejudice, because what's important to you is absolutely necessary for your survival, that each of us are specializing in different prejudice because we're experimenting as our own confederacy into what yields the best kind of person. So we're constantly analyzing, what did that person's parents believe? What was their political affiliation? What did they do for a living? And that if I could mimic that, will I have the same success? And that's what you want in a confederacy, is an island of prejudices collected inside a swamp. And that swamp is making it harder to do anything collectively, because ultimately yourself is going to be the one that's going to make the best experiment. Until we have laws that satisfy a conscientious objective pathway, I don't think that we're actually living in a free society or a democracy. I think we're living in a collective form of self-abdication, a church where we all worship the collective, the majority itself, and we insist this is the way. And we do this not because we're flawed. We do this because we're learning to walk, we're learning to stand, we're learning to crawl. Jury nullification is about the last bastion that you have. Citizens may refuse to convict under unjust laws. A layperson's veto. This is, in my mind, the final frontier. We discussed this, maybe not enough, but a lot on this show. I think we should do a whole show just on jury nullification. You yourself have the ability to override the law. You yourself, if you are placed on a jury, and if any of you get the jury letter and you can afford to put the time in and invest in it, I think that you should lean into it, not lean away. And the reason why I think you should lead into it, because it's going to lead you down a road where you start to research heavily things like jury nullification. At least I hope so. And that I would hope that you would take the challenge and throw yourself onto the playing board and have some fun with this. And if you start to look up jury nullification, you're going to see, oh my God, what is this stuff? That you have the ability to override the law. That you get to conscientiously object to this because the law would not be valid without it. And jury nullification is an interesting thing. The Supreme Court has actually ruled that a judge does not have to inform you of your right to jury nullify anything. And it goes deeper. A judge is allowed in this same Supreme Court case to lie to the jury and tell them that they do not have the right to jury nullification. This is all true. And it's argued in the Supreme Court, one of the most fascinating cases that I've read, and I've probably read 3, so maybe that's not impressive. But when you read that case, it is really fascinating because you're seeing some of the masters of what used to be legal thought. I don't think that we have masters in any kind of Supreme Court right now, by the way. But you saw an opportunity where people, this is back in the days of the ACLU, when the ACLU was like defending Klan rights, like looking for like the worst of the worst cases of free speech and defending those. You saw this deep underground battle into the true meaning of what justice is. And it was shown that a judge is allowed to lie to a jury because jury nullification itself could be used by the defense as a way of steering a jury simply on its own accord. So jury nullification is deemed valid and logical as long as the court is not pressing it upon you. Such a fascinating, weird case. Really weird. Because you can if you have the ability of compassion, you can actually see both sides of this. You can see really clearly where the legal concept is. And even the idea that, well, wouldn't it be that person's job as a sovereign individual to find jury nullification's rights within their own being? This is truly the meaning of inalienable rights, my friends. That when you truly understand what your rights really are, they come from inside of you, and therefore it is not necessary for a court to inform you that they exist. In fact, to inform you that they exist would be to spoil the experiment, That there's an experiment here. That you enter into a hermetic ladder by naturally stepping away from a bicameral system and inventing the self. And as soon as you invent the self, you are losing all the prana of the collective mind, whether it be from the truth movement, whether it be from the Republicans, whether it be from the Democrats, and you start to be cornered. You're cornered by the Painbody of the collective that does not like how nervous you're making them because you're thinking for yourself. Because once you think for yourself, it starts to place shame into their own field because they can see how much taller you stand when you are thinking that way. So most of the time, the groups will start to attack the black sheep first while they're still a sheep, because they know ultimately their only safety is in number. This is why sheep and sheep are singular and plural. There's no separation because the self has not been formed yet. Quick sidebar. I want you guys to do as best as you can to consider using this opportunity to encourage the movements that you're seeing now, whether it be no kings, whether it be truckers, whether it be people even being outraged by the system itself, that there's a tendency a lot of times in the truth movement to sit on the laurels of, well, I was awake first, and that is truly the greatest form of controlled opposition that I think you'll find today. It's one of the most disgusting forms, and it's easy to catch. You're looking for charlatans that are surfing on what is popular right now. What is the most popular thing to say? And you're watching these people, and you're watching all the prana that gets lost because people could be seeking these other things. And truly, if you want to look at someone to maybe pollinate, to maybe change, it would be those people. It's not going to do good to tell Trump he's a bad guy. It's not going to help anything to convince Carolyn Levitt that maybe she's fucking insane. Those things aren't going to do any good, but your neighbors are. And when you start to see someone shitting on the advancement of a consciousness that's lower than yours, you should really ask yourself, is this person actually helping? Because when a Democrat gets upset at the system and now they're starting to think they're not a Democrat, that's called progress. When a Republican is upset with the system and they start to question that, that's progress. And as much as you may want to remove the very ladder that you were using to crawl out of this thing, you're not helping that situation right now. So do you want to help or not? I don't think a lot of us even want to help because help itself is a prejudice. Guys, I have a prejudice to where I see the world. I see the world with a lot less hyenas. That's a prejudice. I have a righteous indignation to seeing a world with less hyenas. I'm only one piece of Africa. I'm just Giraffe Man. I don't fucking know. I don't know shit. I just have learned a certain technique and I've watched a certain thing happen and I just happen to have a prejudice that says this, right? That just suggests this is what's happening. You know, another big one that a lot of truthers shit on is data encryption. That, believe it or not, Bitcoin itself is a preservation of your individual species. It doesn't have to be Bitcoin. But the fact that you can encrypt something as valuable as money itself, and that you and only you would have those keys, and no one else around you has the ability to unlock those keys. And even if you dream of a super quantum computer that could break SHA-256, which I'm sure it'll happen eventually, all you do by breaking that is destroying everything. So it's kind of a blackmail's paradise. It's kind of the perfect form that we have the preservation of privacy. That privacy itself is such a powerful etheric force that it's been digitized in your presence. And the people that have been fearing crypto truly are at war with privacy. Most conservatives have a super hard time with privacy. They think that privacy leads to a kind of, shall you say, a kind of desecration. So a lot of people that are like, we have to stop all the porn. What they really mean is, I cannot stop looking at porn. And they feel that if enough people, if they can inject enough, we have to save the children, that they will then become safe. And is this really wrong? I say no. I say that if you were doing your best to control your Muladhara, some of you are just like, we must shame the Muladhara. And you know, way to fucking go, man. You know, you're not the first one, but I'm sure you'll not be the last either. So, you know, get on with yourself. But these ideas of we must create laws to stop is truly just our own system trying to jack into the willpower of the collective. And the ones that are jacking into the willpower of collective are always going to want some sort of archy, whether it be oligarchy, plutarchy, polyarchy, even democracy, that's going to benefit them more because they get to release themselves from the bonds of, say, a porn addiction, and then they get to 3 weeks later go on Twitter and say, anyone who does this is fucking evil and we need to ban it. And that this is a motor, a mechanism, the same way that you would be able to do all kinds of terrible things maybe and then go to a Catholic priest and say a few Hail Marys later. This is a necessary part of building a limbic base and still having a moral compass, because the moral compass is just informing your world and it's making it taste richer. And these are two things we can't necessarily get rid of, even though hats off to the Buddhists for trying. You guys are still trying. If anyone's going to pull this off, it's going to be you. So, keep us posted on how that works. This conceptual ladder that I'm telling you about is the movement of your consciousness from a lower rung into a higher rung. And when you start to recognize things like jury nullification, like conscience subjected, like your ability to encrypt and have privacy, that privacy itself doesn't mean that you're evil. It doesn't mean that you are hiding something that no one else should see. It means that you have a self. And when you have a self, your right to privacy becomes as important as your home, as important as your bedside table, as important as what you choose to think in your mind and believe in your heart, and that only a self would need these things. And the people that are shaming these things and saying that privacy is wrong are the people that do not have a self, A, and B, are terrified of what a self will bring. Exit and subsidiary. None of us are allowed to leave the country. We're said, if you don't like it, you can get the fuck out. But that's actually not really an option. If we had true exit, we would be able to stay right here. I informed you guys that in Rome, most of the people living in Rome weren't citizens. And they were wandering the streets because they were a vital part, just as our migrant workers are a vital part of our economy, just as our dystopian drug addicts are a vital part of our social structure. That you would not know how high society has reached until you had the lowest of the low to compare it to. And our war on the homeless is a war on our own sense of shame when it comes to how well we've done in this life. And that shame would make a lot of sense if we can just start to caramelize it, start to steer it, start to mix it around and play with it a little bit, and then start to exercise our morality from it. Not having the ability to exit truly does mean you do not actually live in a system of government. You live inside a Painbody that's telling itself that all of this is legit. Financial opt-outs would be a part of this too. I've written a thing, The Man from Katua, years ago, where I've painted the picture of what I think would actually work. And I think a lot of people hate it because it involves the word smart contract. Smart contract is a form of money. Ethereum is one of many. I won't go into the technical details of this. But that if you wanted to pay a potlatch to the government the same way the Iroquois do, that if you could utilize smart money, government would be fucked if they didn't do everything correctly. Smart money is the ability to allocate your funds into a certain purpose from a certain percentage, that you can build a contract in that money that says you can have these tax dollars if in 3 years I see this. Boom, 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 boom. That's your smart contract. You have a smart contract that you can run through a judge vendor, an artificial vendor, a human vendor. I prefer an artificial vendor, but a lot of you guys are like, no, we need human judges. And I'm just like, okay, let's try that for a while. But if you have a system that you can proof your smart contract with, you now have the ability to truly give your consent for the very, very first time. You can truly give your consent to a government. You can tell your local government, I will want to improve this road as long as it's this. And that your smart contract would be spent or revoked based on the ability for that to be produced. And that this may not be a perfect system, it would get us so much closer to the idea that government is you and you are government, because we don't actually have that now. What we have is government is everyone who's evacuated themselves. And until you can learn to find yourself, you may need government, and you're going to have to be evacuated to be inside of that system. Sunset and supermajority for encroachments. Any temporary suspension of rights should auto-expire by design. Should you even have a suspension of rights? Is there really, truly, a need that we have to eliminate the freedom of speech because a guy says there's fire in a theater? Think about this. We've built an entire democracy on, because one guy can say fire in a theater, we have to now encroach speech. We have to remove all these things. And why have we done that? Because we removed the responsibility for you to fucking hear and you discern lies. We've removed our ability for you as a free agent to decide which speech you even seem valid. And that if we lived in a society that was more Confederate, that was more Iroquois Confederacy, that the person that yelled fire would just have his ass kicked. That's all. And that it wouldn't be a government-sponsored event. And I'm going to push you more, because the guy that kicks that guy's ass, he committed violence. And he would then go to court and be prosecuted for the violence, because that is his potlatch to society. And that anytime you go overseas and shoot a foreigner in the name of democracy, that the only way you could avoid PTSD, the only way you could avoid burning in hell inside of America while you're still alive, is if you were held on trial, as if you were held responsible for what you did, and you stand up and you say, yeah, I did shoot that dude. What's his name? Ingve. Yeah, I fucking shot Ingve. Why'd you do it? Because I think that our country would be better if I shot Ingve. And that's not a defense, that's a reason. But now you get to pay for your reason. You get to pollinate the world by doing time with other veterans. You guys are probably having a good fucking time in there. You're like, remember when you shot Ingve? It's like, fuck yeah, I shot Ingve. And you guys are going to spend the 20 years in jail feeling patriotic because you got to pay for your crime. Because your crime was important enough that you saw that it was just. And the only way we could have a society that was just is if everyone who takes a life gets to pay for it. That you get to pay for these things. And that you would want to pay for these things because that's what it means to truly sacrifice yourself for your country. Do we have that now? Fuck no. You were given a $50,000 bonus to join ICE. All of your college bills are relinquished. This is the exact opposite of accountability. This is the antithesis of that. And we have this weird notion because none of us are thinking in charge. What's happening is the Painbody is speaking to us. And the Painbody will go when veto returns. Private law space, associated freedom. There should be a robust freedom to form communities with rules by consent. Oh my God, James. Don't say it. Don't say it. NXIVM. Don't say it, James. NXIVM. Don't say it, James. NXIVM should be a consenting operation that should be allowed to exist. James, NXIVM's a sex cult. I know. It's a sex cult. And if those are consenting adults, it should be allowed to exist. And a consenting adult coming out of a sex cult after 6 years wants to write a book and say that I was a victim, you should tell that person, I don't want you to be a victim because I have too much respect for you. This is what happened. And this consensual relationship is part of you being an adult. And I'm just going to give you an idea. The next time some dude says, put these nipple clamps on and scrub my floors for 6 years, just fucking Nancy Reagan his ass. Just fucking say no. But James, you can't be expected to say no because of like mind control. It's like, well, if we're going to pretend, if we're going to, let's take that word. I love that word. If we're going to say that people can be fooled, they could be mind controlled, then why are we giving them the power of the vote? Ding. Why? Oh, James, don't you hit me there, dude. Feeling dizzy. You hit me there. Why are we pretending these guys are adults? Same thing for the Nazi Republican stuff. If they are too young to control what they say, J.D. Vance, why are we giving them the power to kill people in a war? That happens at 18. Why are we giving them the power to drive a vehicle drunk? That's 21. Why are we giving them the power to do anything at all? If they're not able to control their tongues, why are we calling them adults? And the truth is that the adult that we have now is just a domesticated cow with knees. Cows have knees, sorry. A domesticated bipedal cow. That's really all it is. Until you're able to enslave yourself into a consensual cult, an inscription, encrypted relationship, we actually have no business describing what we have as being free. We don't. Transparent emergency triggers. Independent termination authority separate from the initiator. What this means is that, not that America would ever do this. They would never do this. But another country that's like bad, they may use the principle of a state of emergency to enter into a permanent state of war in which, let's make this up so you can kind of hear it. The United Bates of Congo would say, we're going to create an agency called FEMA, and we're going to put them in charge because we're in a state of emergency. And as long as you have a government that has that, I know I keep harping on this. Bling, Article 1, Section 9 says every single right you've ever been given can be removed under the auspice of public safety. Clause 2. Clause B. Clause B. And James just made a satanic hand sign. But Clause B. Clause B. That's how satanic it is. It's that satanic. So until we have these things, guys, this is not a free society. This is a society for people who want to believe in free speech. What does that mean? If you yell fire in a theater, someone could kick your ass if there's not a fire. Is that free speech? Is that free speech? Because the argument is that you would be able to yell fire in a theater and no one punish you for that. And we're saying no one would punish you for that because we would have to have a law to punish you for that. And we're saying there would have to be a law to punish you for that because we've just revoked your ability to punish another. We've taken that away from you. And you didn't even know it. Do you know why you didn't know it? Because of soft despotism. Despotizioso. Because of this guy. And you have been softly despotized. I hope you are happy with your soft despotism, because I told it would happen over 100 years ago, and you fell for it, you naughty, naughty American. Jury nullification, guys, look it up. The process whereby a jury in a criminal case effectively nullifies a law by acquitting a defendant regardless of the weight of evidence against her. You literally can raise your hand in the jury room and say, I think not guilty. And you're going to have 11 eyes, 17 eyes. It depends on where you're in jury duty. Look at you and say, what did you say, essay? And this is the only time you will ever have in your lifetime to power up in front of 11 strangers that represent the state. This is a red pheasant, guys. This is like one of the most important events you will have in your life. And that if it's, let's just make up a case. Let's say it's possession of a houseplant. Let's pretend that we live in a country that says certain houseplants are illegal. I know. But, let's be kind of silly. Let's pretend like that could happen, okay? So let's say that there's a law that says certain houseplants are illegal and you can go to jail for having a houseplant. Let's say that you're on that jury and you think houseplants are fine. You're just like, you know what? I don't have an issue with houseplants. You're a houseplantian is what you are. You're pro-houseplant. So even though there's a law, and even though the judge just told you your job is only to see if this person broke this law, and that's the only thing you can do, and judges will say that, he's lying to you. The Supreme Court allowed him to lie to you when he said, this is all you can do. He won't use the words jury nullification. He's not going to say that word. That would actually declare a mistrial, I swear to God. If he or a lawyer says the word jury nullification, I bet you that case is going to be dismissed. And the reason why I bet that is because of this Supreme Court case that this falls under. Back to the jury room. This crazy idea that houseplants would be illegal. I know it's hard to even imagine. It's so crazy. You raise your hand and you say not guilty. And everyone goes, but you don't think you did it? And you can even say, yeah, I think you did it. And then they're going to be like, well, why'd you say not guilty? Be like, because I don't think that's a crime. 3 of the jurors are going to say, but you can't do that. You can't do that. You don't get to decide what a law is or not. And you get to look at him and go, yeah, I do. You get to look at him and go, yeah, I do. Inside the jury room, you can say the word jury nullification. I did it when I was on grand jury. I voted no to every single houseplant case I could find. I voted no to every single case I could find where I could not find a victim. Do you know why I voted on that? Because I don't think that you can have a crime if you don't have a victim. It's victimless crime. I think that's an oxymoron. I told people that before I knew fully or even was even aware of jury nullification. Because I was on grand jury, I had to do this every month for a year. And every month I started to learn more legal language that would help me corrupt the shit out of that jury room. And the next time I brought up jury nullification. I said, have you guys ever heard of jury nullification? And no one had, of course not. And I started to explain it. People didn't believe me. It was like, you're fucking crazy. But they had made me foreman. So they fucked that up. They made me foreman. Turned out that due to my history and things that I've studied in school and whatnot, that when they were picked a foreman, I was like, well, I've done this, this, and this. And everyone was like, sold, you're the foreman. And now I'm telling about jury nullification. I am the power and the glory. It's true. I felt so good in that position, even though I was losing. I'm being self-employed. That's rough to have to leave your work every month. No one's paying you for that. To spend all day listening to this shit, to go through their metal detectors and all the other stuff, to even have the balls to even say in front of the bailman, well, I believe in jury nullification, guys. I think you guys need to look into this. And I'm bringing them in sheets. I'm handing them out. I'm corrupting the shit out of that jury. And even when you do that, you will still be up against a strong, strong contention of, that's not what the judge told me. Judge didn't tell me that. Judge didn't say that was okay. And you're not going to get through to everyone. But you are pollinating. You're looking at No Kings and you're saying this is a good idea. You're being positive about the movement, just like you were in Ottawa. You're seeing the positive hermetic ladder of people rising simply by trying something else for a while, by attempting to reach a new kind of place. And that place is the exit of majoritarianism. I want you to start to apply this litmus to every single thing that you see. Number one, does it enter a veto domain? In other words, is this affecting my body? Is it affecting my conscience? This is a big one, guys. Think about it. Most people don't even have a conscience yet. Their conscience, I should say, is instead guided by those around him and just peer pressure itself. They don't have a self-conscious yet. Do you have veto? Does it touch your body? Does it touch your conscience? Does it touch your privacy? Does it touch your due process? Does it touch your property? Property is self. Did you know that? That you rub your balls on your pillow and it becomes you. It becomes part of who you are. Is there non-punitive opt-out or alternative? Does this rule force me to do, support, solicit, allow, harbor, or engage in anything? Number three, is the harm concrete and imminent? Is it imminent, not hypothetical? Number four, are there sunsets, audits, appeal paths independent of this? In other words, is there a self-expiration? Why does not every law expire? Shouldn't every law have a forced expiration date inside of it? Shouldn't you require the Senate to vote again to keep a prejudice against you when truly we should be just respecting our own autonomy as much as we can? Finally, can a jury or judge stop it in a single case without changing the whole law? Can it, contrary to what Musk wanted, can we have a legislative branch and ensure that? Some of you said in the comments, well, why don't we nullify judges? I don't think you want to do that. I think that you may find that it turns out judges are going to be more on your side than anyone else. Judges is the only place that a legal scholar can go and truly practice their craft. It's the only place. You don't get to practice moral law as a lawyer. Even if you get successful, maybe you get to handpick your cases. You're not actually practicing law. You're just jousting. If I think you'd find that if we rose up into a non-majoritarian place, you would actually find judges are pretty cool as fuck. I got no beef, by the way, with like changing judges out more or whatever. I'm not saying that the system is perfect. But I do really, really get nervous when people are like, we have to destroy our government and eliminate all judges, because I think that's impossible. One of my biggest beefs with anarchists is that they insist that everyone should not have a ruler and that no one gets to be slaves. And I think that this is one of the worst kinds of encroachments on someone's freedom, that if you're born into this world and you're having trouble surviving, that you could exercise the creative measure of indenturing yourself into servitude unto someone else. And that this is what we're doing right now simply by having a job. Some people work for the Starbucks Corporation. They are an indentured servant inside that coffee mecca, that coffee plantation. I do not know why we are insisting that that has to be wrong. I think that our insistence that parasitic relationships are wrong means that we should be killing babies for slouching. We should be eliminating all forms of childhood itself as being non-anarchistic. That we should be insisting that everyone should have this pure, sovereign, raw autonomy from the moment we're born. And not only is that not possible, but I think that that's a delusion, that it goes directly against nature. Which is why I think you're going to want laws, you're going to want judges, but you're going to want to have a respect, the idea of a veto, the idea of a confederacy. The Articles of Confederacy had this. And a system of power which is not top down but percolates from the soil up is what's called bioregionalism. And inside of a system of bioregionalism, you become the expert because you are physically there on the land. Your presence itself, remember when I told you rub your pillow and your private stuff, it becomes you? That's what happens with land. And that the only people that are most qualified to make any decisions about any kind of land are the people that are rubbing their nuts on it. This is a term. It's called Nutsacius sovereinicus lawicus validicus. It's an ancient Latin term. Look it up. I'll wait. Don't look that up. But this is really, I think, where we're going. It's just taking us a while to get there. And until then, you're going to be walking into Illinois Home Depot. And you're going to be seeing a soft despotism. You're going to see two guys in hoods with no identification at all taking down another guy that doesn't seem to do anything wrong. And you're going to wonder, what the fuck am I supposed to do here? Is there a right decision? Is what's happening good? Is what's happening bad? And right now what happens is when you see something like this, you rush out to your nearest social media because you're trying to see, is this right or wrong? So you check the Republicans. Well, the Republicans say it's fucking great. And these guys are making fun of these guys for not liking it. And these guys, they fucking hate it. And that most of us shop for our conscience by looking at where we're going to meet more friends. This is some of my beef with the truth charlatans. The people that are pretending to be for the truth movement are just pushing charlatanism, which is just pushing, hey, where can I find the most friends if I say I believe this? This is the Painbody. This is the Painbody running the show. It's, guys, this is serious stuff. This is Chicago. This is Illinois, in fact. It's even closer than Chicago because it's Illinois. It's right here. It's right here. It's literally a place that you zoom into and go to. And when you go there, you see this. And when you go there and you see this enough, you're going to find that there are people that are willing to throw down because they have a conscience. And when you see that, this is what should inspire you more, because I'm inspired so much by this. And when I see people trying to shit on things like, oh, you're just trying to distract you. They're not trying to distract you. They're literally taking your neighbors, indigenous plants with kneecaps that happen to be human, that are warm-blooded plants, and removing them from the place. And you're going to bitch to me because you think everything's fake, brah? You're going to bitch to me because this is a distraction? This isn't a distraction. This is what's happening in front of you, and you just don't have the balls to take care of it. This is how you take care of it. This is beautiful. These are the horns of freedom. I love this place. I love what we do. I love how long it takes. I love how all of this is happening and we're just insisting that it isn't. This is the greatest experiment I've ever been a part of. I love this song too, Aretha Franklin's. Exactly. It's the greatest experiment I've ever been a part of. And it's a great opportunity to learn. It's a great opportunity to explore. And it's a great opportunity to grow a conscience, find yourself, and enjoy it. See you next time on James True. Appreciate you guys. See you later. I'll be with Carmen Studer in about an hour. Check my channel. Be sure and subscribe. I'll put a link to that. We'll be discussing a lot more of the details about Epstein and hate and some other things too. So, yeah, have a good one.